Today, let's learn an incredibly powerful paint technique for retouching and cleaning up a street using tools available in the free version of DaVinci Resolve's Fusion page. You're going to learn how to paint a clean plate without ever even opening up Photoshop or Affinity Photo. Here's a before, and then here's an after removing the bus only sign off 42nd Street. The 5 chapters today will be planar tracking so we can match move a modified freeze frame, frequency separation so we can paint color separately from the texture or detail, color paint, we'll just use a regular stroke brush for that. Then we'll use texture paint using the copy Polyline instead of a brush, and then finally mask and merge. For my cutting club members, go grab the raw clip from creativevideotips.com to follow along. Anyone is very welcome to join. This is how you can best support the channel. Before I even open up the Fusion page, I want to point out a new project setting that's in DaVinci Resolve 20. If I go down the File menu to my project settings, there's a new Fusion tab over here. And what this allows me to do is anytime I make a Fusion composition, I can set a default start frame that's something other than the old default, which was 0. I'm setting it to 1001 on everything moving forward. And this is to help with if you have handles and need to extend the endpoint, then you're not dealing with negative frames, which gets really confusing really fast. So set this before you open in Fusion. And then the other thing I want to point out is my color management settings. So this clip right here, it's a B-raw clip, so it's a raw clip, and it works great with color management. So that's what I've done. On my timeline settings, right-click timeline, timeline settings, I have my color tab set to DaVinci YRGB color managed with the HDR preset. Now, basically, this is just going to do all that hard work, color converting everything so it looks correct on my Rec 709 display. But more importantly, when I open this in Fusion now, it's basically going to take care of the image, make sure it's working in a linear space for me while I'm compositing. You can see it's extra dark. That means we're working in linear, and it does things the right way. Now, the other thing to pay attention to is your view LUT up here, and make sure this is set to Fusion view LUT if you're using color management, and it'll apply the right colors for you. Planar tracking. So the idea here is we're going to freeze frame a single image, and then we're going to apply that movement overall. So first thing I need to do is find an image that I want to freeze. Maybe I actually use frame 1050, and the idea is I'm going to paint out this sign here that says only bus. And so the way I can paint this out, I'm going to move this so we're working sort of top down. This is the mid-flow vertical layout. After media in 1, the way I can get a freeze frame of just a single frame, an easy way to do that is if I hit shift space, the time speed node can easily do that. I'll pick and flick. I've got that loaded into the viewer. Get always used to loading the node you want to work on so you can see the results of it as you load it. And then hit the freeze frame button. This is kind of new in 19 something they added this. If you click freeze frame, now if I play along here, it's basically frozen that frame, everywhere in the flow, which is great. So that's the frame we're going to work on. In fact, you might rename this if I hit function F2 or just F2 if you don't have this editor keyboard. You might even say what frame it is. It just does a note for yourself. So this is frame 1050, something like that. So that way you know where it came from. Now let's get to tracking it. So obviously we can't track a freeze frame, but what we can do is make that our reference frame when we start doing our planar track. So if you just click anywhere in the node flow, like right there, when you create a new node, it will drop it right there in the flow for you. So if I hit shift space and start typing PTRA, it sort of poops it out like right there for you. So what I can do now is take the media in 1, which actually has moving footage, right? If I look at the media in 1, has moving footage, it's shaking around. And I'll go to frame 1050. Let's load the planar tracker into this frame. And what we'll do with the planar tracker is we'll end up making the reference time or the reference frame 1050 on this one. So I need to draw out an area. Basically, when you have the planar tracker loaded and selected, you get like a little crosshair in the window. So I can click, and basically I'm just trying to find areas of the same surface that would have the same movement of the area of the patch I want to use. In fact, the shortcut here to close a polygon or a planar tracker is Shift O. If you want to learn a shortcut, so you don't have to be so precise and click in there. The other thing I'll point over here, as soon as I close that up, I want to hit Set in the inspector, which sets the reference frame to match our freeze frame, right? So everything's going to be based off of a reference frame. Now, the tracker type, you could use point. I'll use hybrid point area. Either one of these is fine. Hybrid point is kind of like a 2-pass version of it, slightly better. And for this tutorial, I picked an easy shot. We can leave the rest alone as perspective, which is the most data. I'll hit this button to track to the right. And basically, it's looking for contrast areas within there. And then to track the other direction, you can see we have keyframes all along the bottom here. I'll hit go, takes us back to that reference frame. And then I can track with the left button from here. And this is, again, it's easy tracking shot. The whole point of this tutorial is about painting, so I wanted to make this easy. But the way you always check your track, you gotta always check your tracks, is to come over to operation mode, set it to steady, and then come in real close with your cursor, and then leave it parked, and then lift it off so you're not moving your cursor. Hit spacebar to hit play, and if that is moving or wobbling at all, your track is no good. So you do need to go in and refine it. I've got lots of tutorials on tracking on the channel, but it looks like we're good. Purposely chose an easy one for this tutorial so we can focus on the painting. So let's get to that next. I'm gonna go over to the track mode. Now that we're back in track mode, I'll hit Command F to see the whole thing. And essentially what we're gonna do next is get our planar transform ready so that we can assemble this later on once it's cleaned up. The way you do that is down here, Create Planar Transform, and this will spit out a new node right over. Sometimes it's always up or left on the flow. I don't know how it plans where it puts it, but this is really important. We don't actually need this planar tracker anymore because this planar transform has all of the match move data that we need, and it's all, even if you click on it, you'll see it tells us our reference time is 1050. So let's set up our frequency separation for paint next. Frequency separation. This is where we're gonna actually separate detail and texture from the color pipe. So we'll have two different sort of streams going, and we'll put them together at the end. So the way this gets started, the way you can extract detail, is just with a blur node and a channel boolean set to subtract. So the way that gets set up, I'm gonna load my time speed node, that's the freeze frame, into the viewer, and after this one, we'll hit Shift Space and just add a regular old blur. And what the blur is gonna do is gonna give us an average that we can subtract again. So after the blur, I'm gonna hit Shift Space again, hit Channel Booleans, the BOL is the shortcut for it. Just make sure you're getting the one that's called Booleans with the S, not the 3-ball one. And once we do that, on Channel Booleans, we set the operation to subtract the alpha channel. We're not dealing with alphas at all, so we'll set that to do nothing. And the way this is gonna get connected here is I actually wanna take the footage of the original still image into the background over here of channel booleans, and I want to subtract, the foreground is going to be the blur. So this is important. The blur goes into the green input of channel booleans, and now we've subtracted, we've isolated the detail level that can be cloned separately from color information. Now, if there's not enough detail that's separated, you can just click the blur node, increase this, maybe bring it up to a value of 3 or 4, whatever is going to work. We can change it afterwards. But essentially, this is detail that we can clone. So I can clone, you know, where it says Y right here, I can maybe grab pixels from over here for just the texture of this, which is gonna allow me to start working with painting with color and not have to be quite so precise, and I can make it not so cloney if we were just to try to do this all in one fell swoop. Color paint. So painting with color is actually really simple in DaVinci Resolve, and because we're frequency separating it, you don't have to be such a perfectionist artist while you're doing this. So to paint, we're gonna pull up, Shift Space, you guessed it, the Paint tool. Incredibly powerful paint tool. And I'll connect my footage into it. Paint tool always needs an input to it, so I'm putting my freeze frame footage into it. You can see I've got this over to the side because I'm gonna think of my left side here as my color, my right side here is gonna be my high detail texture. So on the paint tool, I wanna make sure I load it into the viewer, have it selected, and then you wanna make sure you choose over here, the third one over is called the stroke tool. It's not the one that's selected by default, but this is the one that's gonna automatically be applied to all the different frames. And we're just gonna be painting with color today, just a color. And the way you sample color is with holding Option on the canvas over here, and it's gonna pull the actual color of the footage in there, so it'll carry and it'll match exactly. But when you first sample it, it's a 1x1 pixel sample, which oddly enough, a lot of times you might sample a piece of noise or something, so I like to average it out. And the way that you can do that is if you click and hold this eyedropper and keep holding it all the way until you get across. And then once you get over here, on a Mac, it's Command. I think on Windows, it's a PC. And you hold down on it. Instead of it being a 1x1 pixel, you can increase the size of here. And basically what we'll be doing is averaging all those different pixels when we're sampling a color. So if I Option click here, you'll see that I'm sampling a larger region of color. And then when I want to start painting with that color, I can easily do that right here on the still image. I can change the brush sizes easily using a Wacom by holding Command or Control and dragging left and right. You can see how easy that is. So the idea generally is make bigger strokes than you think you need to. We're going to patch this up and cover it with texture anyways. So I'm going to sample with Option or Alt, color right there, and I just start making nice light strokes, and I keep sampling colors. so that I'm getting a nice sort of fade and blend between these. And using something like a Wacom stylus, a pressure sensitive pen, I'm able to try to smoothly blend between them, but you don't have to be super, super fancy, because if you select an area in the middle, you can keep coming at this, and the color paint in DaVinci Resolve Fusion is not really difficult or hard on the computer. It's when you get into the clones and blurs that it starts to bog down. So the way we're doing this right now should be, pretty nice and easy. So I've got some sort of a blend there. I don't see too much. Oh, down here, let's fix that up, so we don't see any of the signage. And I'm just worried about color. You can see we have no texture, so this looks not realistic at all. But when we add that texture back in, it's not going to be an issue. So I'm going to call that good, and we'll move on to cloning with texture next. Texture paint using Copy Polyline in the Paints tool. Now this one's really often overlooked, but extremely powerful. Let me show you how it works. So if you hold Shift Space, we'll add another Paints tool. So I'm working on the texture part of our composition over here. Remember, this is our high frequency part. And I'll load the paint tool into the viewer, and the Copy Polyline is going to be this guy right here. And essentially what this does, if I select it, it allows me to click points on my image and build a mask that I can shift the image around underneath. Remember, Shift O will help close up those masks for me. If I need to move that, I can. But once an area is selected, if you come over to the source, you can choose what source it's pulling from. So I can pull from areas below it, move it to the left. I can even come over here and you'll see there's a softness parameter to it. So this is a way that, methodically, you can go through and clone from different areas, taking one patch at a time. It's essentially kind of like if you were to draw a lot of polygon masks and did transforms with merges, but it stores all these as modifiers, and so they all stack on top of each other, so they're real easy to modify, and they keep your node tree from turning into a big giant mess. So I like this method a lot. I'm going to speed through this next section here because you don't need to see me drawing a lot of these, but essentially what I'll be doing is each time I'll click on Copy Polyline after I want to make a new shape, and then I'll come over here and choose a new section I want to clone out. Maybe I'll click here, 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 close it up, and I'll move my source X and Y to where I don't see the texture or detail for that anymore. And one thing you'll notice, there's also a softness to this. It should remember your last softness setting as well. So you can just keep going and going. So another Copy Polyline gets added down here, and I'm clicking around it. Shift O closes it, and I'm moving my source so that I don't see any of that detail anymore. So I'm going to speed this section up, and once I'm done, I'll show you how it's all connected. And there, if I hit F right now, you'll see I've removed, as far as I can tell, all the texture from there. And if you ever needed to go back and refine any of it, if you come over on the paint tool itself, make sure it's selected, in the modifiers tab, you can see I've got all of these different strokes that I can bring back and make changes to any of these parameters along the way. So it's basically each of these Copy Polylines builds one on top of the other till they're gone. So how do we combine all this? Now we've got the color paint, which is right here, and we've got the texture paint. All we need to do is combine this with another channel booleans. So what I'll do is I'll take this channel booleans, which is set to subtract, make a copy, Command C or Control C, and Command V right after the paint. And on the second one here, it will not be subtract, it'll be add. So we'll change this to add, make sure your alpha is doing nothing, and we're going to add the color paint, which is this side, and the texture paint from this side. And you'll notice we've removed that, and if you needed more or less texture, we can just change the blur setting over here. So no texture, that's what it looked like. And you can see as we increase this value here, we're adding that texture back from our Copy Polyline, cloning that we had done. And finally, step 5 is going to be to mask and merge this still image back over the original plate. The way I like to do this, so we can cut out just the area that had the text on it, just where it said bus only, is I like to use a brightness contrast node so that I can multiply the mask out, so I can cut the patch out. So let's do that with a Shift Space, BC is brightness contrast. And the only reason I use this, it's a really lightweight node that has a checkbox to basically multiply a mask out. I don't have a mask yet, so I need to get a mask. You can grab a B-spline, a polygon, whatever you want. I just grabbed a polygon here. One thing to note is I just clicked it and it automatically connected. Typically, I like to draw my mask with them not connected so I can actually see the results of the image, or I can see the image while I'm doing it. So I'm just going to come in here using Command mouse wheel or middle mouse, left, right to zoom in as usual. And I'm just clicking around the section of the the area that I want to isolate and patch that we did our cleanup on, because I do not want to include, I only want to include, because I only want to include areas in the patch that are new that I had modified. So I've got that closed up. I connect the polygon into brightness contrast, and then on brightness contrast, let's load that into the viewer. You can see we do see a result here. It's not cut out yet. You need to go to settings and then the checkbox over here for multiply by mask. That'll give us our patch. The other thing to pay attention to with polygons, they're set up for animation by default. So to be careful, because we're working with a still image, it's not going to be moving ever over time. You need to right click over here to get rid of that animation. I just right click over here and say remove polygon, polyline 1. And so that way, if I accidentally adjust the polygon later, it's not doing some rotoscoping for me that I didn't intend. The other thing you can do here to sell this a little bit better is to give some softness to the mask. So there's a soft edge parameter, which you can, if you drag this number here, I think if you hold command, maybe it's option, I think it's command. Hold command, you can kind of more finely control the edge of the fall off of that. And if you don't want, if this is distracting to see this line here, hit Command K in the viewer, and that turns off that green line while you're adjusting things like this, because maybe, you know, you want to not have that be distracted. But a good word of warning, every time you do that, you're going to forget that you turned that off, and you're going to go to use a tool that needs on-screen controls. So make sure as soon as you turn it off, you do come back over here, hit Command K again so you turn it on. I can't tell me how many times I thought my Fusion viewer was broken because I had turned off the show view controls, which is also available under right here. But just Command K is controls. Now we need to put this back over the original footage. We'll do that simply with a merge, shift space, MRG. So that'll go into the background, will be the original plate, and then this patch will go over the top of it. But it's just a still image, right? It's not moving with the actual footage yet, so that's an issue. But remember at the beginning, we created this planar transform. Well, this is where we get to use that planar transform, because the planar transform is based off of the reference frame that we cleaned up. So all we need to do is sort of sneak this in between the foreground of the merge of the foreground of that original plate. And I can do that by holding down Shift, dragging that down to here, and essentially what that's going to do, it's going to move that still image, that freeze frame, along with the rest of the footage. You see there's some areas here that maybe my mask could have been better, or it's pulling in too much from the edge, so I can come back over here and see, do I need to change the soft edge of it? You know, maybe it was too much on that edge. It was starting to bleed into the edge of that line over there. Or maybe we see over here, my color wasn't quite right, but the texture is fine. So to adjust things like that, this is so easy to adjust. And this is why it's nice not to go out to Photoshop or something else, because all I need to do, park this on your reference frame, and you see how this section here is probably too bright. It doesn't blend all that good. Come over to your color section of your painting, which is the left side. And then we've already got our brush selected. All we need to do is change the color on this node right here. So I might hit Option to get a sample of that color and just sort of start painting that color in there so it matches and, you know, sort of flows in there a little bit nicer. Maybe I need to paint a little bit more right there. But because of where I'm painting in the flow, I'm just painting on the still image. And this is all really, really easy to change afterwards. I think part of the reason this line's a little hard too is that this polygon line here probably could be stretched out. So I'll show you one more trick here, and that's called the double poly, to add softness that's selective to just certain parts of the image. The way we do that is this double D up here. Double D is our double poly. It's a little tricky to use, but essentially what just happened is we now have two edges. There's an inner edge, which is the screen edge, and then if I hit tab a couple times, there's a red edge. That's our outer edge. So we can control that softness separately. But what I found is it's hard to know which one you're controlling. So the way that I've developed that I deal with the outside edge is I right click in the viewer. I come down here to inner poly and say I am done with my inner poly. And then my outer poly, I right click again, go to my outer poly, and I say I want to modify that. That's the outer edge of it. Let's see if I can just drag these points, Option drag, and you can see I'm able to drag just the softness of those out there a little bit. Maybe I select this point here and just drag that out. You can see the result of that over here. So I'm essentially using a soft edge with a double poly so you can get incredibly precise, controllable masks to paint out, you know, and remove objects even when you feel like there's nothing in the image you can clone. If you can create color and you can copy texture, you can clean and paint anything. Oh, and one more important thing that you need to always know about the planar transform, it's making something move. So anything that makes something move in DaVinci Resolve Fusion, go to the settings tab and there's an option, a checkbox here for motion blur. So that way it'll apply some motion blur to the still plate. It'll just blend it in a little bit nicer. Now we're looking at the merge, we're not looking at media out. So before you get ahead of yourself and go to the other page and realize, hey, where's my media out? We need to make sure we're sending our media out, which for me, I must have lost it somewhere in the shuffle. So that's not a big deal. You can always create another media out by hitting Shift, space, media, out. And sure enough, I had lost my media out somewhere along the flow. Send this directly to media out 1, go to the edit page, and we can see our paint and cleanup right there. Now, to take your clean plate freeze frame retouching to the next level, check out this tutorial that I have that showcases Milo Labs Pixel Analyzer with Color Matcher that's found on Reactor to dynamically adjust lighting over time, because a lot of the shots you work on, your cleanup is going to need to change exposure. I'm Chadwick, this is Copper, and I really do appreciate you, and because there's so much more to learn, I'll see you in the next video.